Welcome back. It's Pat and Jer. It feels like years. I think it's only really been like 3 weeks, maybe 4. Been an awesome end of the summer, at least for me, not for most of the world, unfortunately. Actually, now that I think about it, I have something I want to talk about with you today, Pat. Probably something that you're not so familiar with, which I'm going to be interested to pick your brain about. But
Okay.
before we get to that, let's take 1 minute to hear what you have to say about Afghanistan, because haven't talked to you in about at least 3 weeks. In the last 3 weeks, Afghanistan went from, I'd say, fairly stable to probably the most unstable place in the world right now. It's been insane. I feel like it was expected. Like, I don't know how we didn't know that this was going to happen by leaving in the middle of the night with like no real timeline and all of that. It seems like it just kept on getting worse and worse. Today, August 30th, I think we're officially completely out, but I don't believe that's I don't know what that even really means, because I have friends that are being deployed there in 2 weeks. So I don't know what being out means. Like, we're definitely going to still have troops there. I guess it's just in a different capacity, but let's hear what you think about that whole situation.
Afghanistan is one of those countries that, like, foreign nations who happen to be powerful at the time continue to insert themselves into the country's dynamic, and it always ends up not going well for everybody involved. And my first reaction is how tragic it is for the Afghan people and how they must just want things to settle down so they can get on with their lives. And unfortunately, we upset that 20 years ago, and now they've got to go through, figuring out where the country goes from here, because they had leaned in on or were trying to lean in on rights for women and girls and more universal education, like an actual infrastructure, like, all sorts of programs and reforms. But at the same time, we're dealing with a corrupt government that was propped up by our money and military, and yet overnight we pull out and it all comes crumbling down. And that's just not something that us here in this country can even fathom. So
no, I mean, the video footage of that plane was out of this world.
Oh, you mean that? Yeah, the famous one where people were like grabbing onto the wings and stuff and the wheels and falling from it.
Here's my question, which I don't really understand too much, is like, one, why did we go there to begin with?
Yeah.
I know, like, terrorism, blah, 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 whatever.
Yeah.
But why did we go there really to begin? Why didn't we leave way earlier?
Yeah.
Why do we still feel responsible? I know we screwed up, but why don't we feel responsible for screwing up the environment and making like Mauricio or some of these countries in like Africa are like a foot underwater right now because of water levels rising? Why don't we feel responsible for that? Why don't we feel responsible for South America or Central America messing all of those governments up and making all of those migrants want to come here because they have bad situations there? I just don't really understand how we like kind of value some things more than others. Shouldn't we, if we're going to allow Afghani refugees here, why don't we allow all refugees here?
Yeah. So,
I ask you like 8 questions there. I kind of jumbled a bunch. You can answer any of them.
I think the easiest thing, just to like, because of like, it's important for folks to understand like why we're there, after the Central Intelligence Agency helped the Afghani people kick the Russians out of their country in the 80s, the Mujahideen, who was the lead fighting force at the time, went through transformations. Some of the individuals that fought in that war, including Osama bin Laden, returned to their home countries. Some stayed. Eventually, a cadre of basically like narco-authoritarian groups took over, formed the Taliban. And in the mid-90s, going forward, that was the main government. And they harbored terrorists from other countries, a lot from Saudi Arabia, including Osama bin Laden. And it was from there that those terrorists launched attacks against the United States, eventually leading to September 11th. And so when we found out that him and Al-Qaeda were responsible, the decision was made to invade. So not just targeted strikes at them, but to take over the whole country and topple the narco state. Their main export and money-making scheme there is poppy fields to make heroin.
Opium.
And they basically smuggled heroin out of the country, and that's how they financed their regime. By the way, after we took over the country, that continued to be the main crop that was exported in Afghanistan, because we didn't want you can either grow poppies in Afghanistan or soy, and American soy farmers did not want cheap competition out of Afghanistan.
Interesting.
So we went there. The Bush administration botched, of course, that invasion up. We lost Osama bin Laden, who fled over the border into Pakistan. There is a northwest region that's very mountainous, where Pakistan does not have full control or sovereignty over that area. And he hid out in there, eventually moving 70 miles from Islamabad, the capital of Pakistan. And our forces just languished there. We tried to take over the country, fight in weird places. It was basically this PR campaign, which continued under the Obama administration. And we were continually lied to. Even after we killed Osama bin Laden, we stayed there because we felt like we owned it. And it was just this war of attrition, just kept going and going and going.
Yeah, that's what I don't get. Why? Why?
Well, because we knew, because
I stay in Venezuela.
Because the American, and we're not the first country to do this. The French have done it, the British, whatever. We go into these countries. There's an insurgency campaign that reacts to our invasion, and insurgents are basically violent political actors, and you cannot kill that. That is always going to exist. Same thing. It's connected to terrorism as well. You cannot defeat that. And so we can go toe to toe with the Taliban or terrorists in the field or ISIS or whatever any day of the week, and we're going to whoop their ass. But guess what? They can outlive us. That's all they had to do. So that's all the Taliban did. And Biden made the correct decision to leave because there was no point in staying there. However, it was well known to anyone that was paying attention that the Afghan military was unmotivated, that we could give them all the money, all the training, all the equipment we want, but they were going to fold, and that the government was corrupt and was basically propped up by warlords. And so the minute we left, of course, the Taliban swept in. Where the mistake we made was we completely underestimated the speed with which it was going to happen.
Could we have left so quickly? I don't know.
Yeah, and then we left all of our people there.
Yeah, I guess what I'm a little skeptical of too is I have to preface this with I did not like Trump at all. He's a horrible guy. I can't help but feel like if the same exact thing happened with Trump at the helm, he'd be getting a lot more flack than Biden is. I know Biden is getting talked about at least a little bit, but I can't help but feel like it seems like this is a pretty big disaster, and I don't know, people aren't picking on him too much. Not to say he's at fault either. I mean, it's a shit show. It would have been anyone's fault, but I feel like similar situations under Trump and people would be a lot more upset.
It's a treaty negotiated by the Trump administration with no conditions that the Biden administration decided to not tweak or do anything about.
They've tweaked a number of things from Trump that they could have tweaked this too. There's no reason why they didn't tweak it.
And he wanted, again, we did need to pull out, but there was no contingency plan to get our people and the Afghans that helped us, the tens of thousands of Afghans that work directly with NATO nations and America, who are still there.
Right.
And
they're getting screwed up right now.
So it's just, again, it's baffling. The best thing that I can do, because I don't think that Biden is a complete narcissistic, crazy person like Trump, is, but he got really bad advice. And unfortunately, the U.S. military, who was very good at this, we got 115,000 people out in like days.
Yeah, no, it is
Like,
crazy.
The U.S. military makes a lot of mistakes, as does the intelligence agencies, but they pulled off an insane feat with basically no backup and no plan. So there's a little bit of that you got to give to these guys,
Completely agree.
these men and women. But the administration just left the country out to dry. And honestly, there are things that the minute they saw what was happening, they could have done. Just been like given the Taliban conditions as far as getting our people out and not giving them a choice, and leveraging the situation, especially when the attacks started to occur.
Right.
They could have said, "Yo, our agreement is null. We could hold this null and void right now."
Right.
Because if you control the country and there are attacks against us, that's on you.
Right. Well,
and they didn't do that. He was just like, no, I'm not getting pulled into more operations. I'm not, I'm just getting everybody out.
So
And
I feel like this situation's probably gonna keep on going for a little bit.
oh, absolutely.
Let's continue probably this discussion again next week. Maybe I'll have a little bit more of a specific angle to talk about. We don't have too much more time. Don't want to make these episodes too long. So we'll have a short little segment. What I wanted to originally talk about. I'm trying to think of a segue into it. It might be a little bit related, but the metaverse. I want to know what you know about the metaverse, what you think about the metaverse. And I guess this is my segue is there's definitely a lot of things that might not be good about the metaverse, but I feel like that's going to help solve a lot of, I guess, like world peace, because the metaverse is not going to have borders. The metaverse is going to be a lot more of an even playing field with equality. And then two, I guess it's a little interesting with, you don't really want censorship and stuff, but when the metaverse comes about, when it'll be interesting to see who governs the metaverse and like how that works. But also when there's evil players or people you don't like, you'll be able to kind of block them or like delete them, which will be, I think, a little bit interesting. So I guess to begin, have you heard about the metaverse? What do you know about the metaverse? Or do you want me to give like a quick 1 minute explanation of what I know, which is still not really, it's not going to be like expertise or anything.
The only thing that I'm familiar with are metaphysical stuff, but the metaverse, as far as the only thing that I know about it is it's digital in nature. That's the only thing that I know about it, but I have not read anything about the metaverse.
I'll give you a little brief synopsis or summary or whatever the correct word is. I don't know words, you know what I mean though. But and then this works out. We'll talk very briefly, and then by next week you might know a little bit more, and we'll talk more in depth about it. So basically, the metaverse is a virtual like world, all right? And why one reason why I think it's going to be huge in the coming years and why I'm like excited about it a bit and kind of want to build in it is or one of the main reasons, there's plenty of reasons. Facebook recently announced that they're not going to be a social media company within the next 5 years. They're going to be a metaverse company. So when you have a company like Facebook already saying that they're converting to the metaverse, I think you know that it's a big deal and it's going to be big. But these are virtual worlds, and there's going to be multiple of them where you basically have a virtual reality that you can exist in. So I think the best example that people would probably understand.
Ready Player One.
That Ready Player One, exactly. But also something I don't really understand is like Fortnite. It's a video game.
Mm-hmm.
So Fortnite isn't, it might be a metaverse now, but they'll transition a little bit more to a metaverse. But an example of it is like there's a lot of individuals playing in the same world and affecting the outcome of your world. So like it's not just computers, it's other players and stuff. It's a real world. And then basically the biggest use case I saw where I was like, wow, this is going to be huge, is last year Travis Scott had a concert in the metaverse in Fortnite. 11 million people attended this concert. There's never been a concert in the world that had 11 million people, but the metaverse makes that possible. So imagine if There's other metaverses where every real estate parcel in the real world, you can buy a digital version, right? So you could buy 26 and Brown, the parcel right at the corner, and like own your home. Someone just bought the White House, I think, a couple weeks ago for 40,000. It's already like being put up for sale for like 80,000, which is interesting. But imagine if the venue that's holding the Travis Scott concert had a parcel right at the entrance for sale, where everyone going to the concert had to walk by that parcel to enter. 11 million people walking through, I'm pretty sure would become the most expensive real estate in the world. You don't have that anywhere. So like, to me, that kind of shows the possibility with the metaverse of how valuable some of that real estate can be. It's also related to NFTs. If you've been hearing about NFTs, those are going to play a big part in the metaverse of having like scarcity of your digital products. There's going to be virtual stores, and basically anything you do virtual, the metaverse will be the starting point for it. So I'm excited for all of that. What I think we could eventually dive into and discuss, which would be interesting, is the governance there. Because are you going to have the same laws as the United States in the metaverse? If your physical body's in the metaverse, maybe, but why would you have all of the same laws? It's going to be pretty interesting. Could you go behind a VPN and start gambling as a 15-year-old? Could you have virtual sex with a minor? That shouldn't be right, but how are they going to stop that? It's is there going to be hookers? Are there going to be a lot of things? Rules will probably be pushed.
Yeah. So the closest thing, and I think anybody that's interested in this, if you haven't read Ready Player One or Two, don't want, the movie is not a representation of it.
My high school actually produced the movie.
Oh, that's cool. I mean, Steven Spielberg, don't get me wrong, it's cool, but like it's not.
Is Steven Spielberg a producer or director?
He directed it.
He directed. So yeah, I think this guy produced it.
So, like cool, whatever, but it didn't delve into what you're talking about, right? The book delves into everything from the morality of it, the ethics, like just the practical stuff. Like, how does it logistically work? How does the real world look outside of, we're calling it the metaverse here. It's the oasis in the book. And it basically, like you said, it's got worlds, and there are anything you can do, and some you can do in this digital landscape. And as the tech evolves, you're not going to be able to tell the difference between the life that you have here and the life that you have there. So it absolutely is correct. It has the potential to completely change the world. Companies that get into this and that provide the tech, the software, that build the worlds, that sell real estate, right? Because that, like you just said, the real estate is going to be a big component of that. Products and stuff that you can buy in the metaverse, contests and games and everything that you can do here, you can participate in and pay money for there. Going to school in the metaverse is going to be a thing.
And it's going to be safer, and for a lot of kids, more opportunity.
So that's a good point, right? Like a lot of it's so contradictory, right? Because you're almost like you're going to start seeing people completely removing themselves. There's a culture in Japan. I always forget the term, but there's a culture in Japan where the lost generation have just retreated into these tiny little single room apartments, and all they do is play video games, and their family have to like get food to them, and it is going to create a whole globe full of people that just retreat from the real world because it has become so shitty for them. And that this is an accessible way that once you have the gear, you can go into the metaverse, and it is liberating in many ways. Think about it. You can eliminate racism because if you're, say, a Black woman who is treated a certain way in the workforce, you can create a white male avatar for yourself, and suddenly you could get compensated, because then people are going to work in the metaverse. Think about it. If you're creating the whole world.
Facebook just came out with an app this week that because working from home, Zooming, me and you right now,
Yeah.
it's good. It's better than the phone, but it's
Yeah.
not the same. If we had an avatar next to each other and there's 4 other people and
Yeah.
I could interact with them while you're interacting with them, and then we come together,
Yes.
a lot more functionality, a lot more utility. So that's where it's going to start first, is the work from home. They're going to start having like virtual conferences, virtual meetings that are very realistic.
The VR tech is got a long way to go. Haptic technology, you know, like you're gonna need gloves, you're gonna need, like, there's gonna be suits, and there's gonna be all sorts of stuff that are gonna be able to replicate feeling, you know, smelling, and you know, all that stuff. So we're still kind of a long way from there, but think about the companies that are getting in. You mentioned just one, Facebook. They're going to bring a lot of money and power to bear on figuring this stuff out. So it's definitely coming sooner rather than later. I am both terrified and hopeful all at once with what we can do with this.
Yeah.
And
most likely it's going to be bad. The potential is good, but the way we've been treating things, not the best.
And I keep going back. I don't mean to use it as a crutch during our conversation, but I go back to the book Ready Player One. In there's an eccentric genius who is both a terrible person, but also an altruistic person, who creates a world that is more, you know, because he invents it and produces the technology and gives it to everyone cheaply, and there's free school, and like he does all this philanthropic stuff with the tech that kind of gets it off to the right start, and kind of creates a little equity and liberty to give people more of a playing field in this, and prevents evil corporate forces from ruining it, because that's the potential too.
Right.
This thing might die before it even gets started if it just becomes another version of the real world. That's the key. Metaverse cannot become exactly like our world here, because the retreat into it as a sanctuary, right, against the horrors of our planet, that's the true potential, right? Is that it's a chance for us to do modern civilization over again.
Yeah.
And
exciting and scary.
You know, so like that could either go really, really bad or really, really good. And you know, there's all sorts of stuff about, because you're going to be creating NPCs when you're in there, and what does that mean? You know, are we going to start creating like avatars that think they become conscious?
Yeah.
And you know, there's a lot of stuff to consider.
Yeah. It's exciting though. I'm here for it.
It's awesome. It's totally cool. But you know, yeah, it could totally replace kind of pretty much the way we do things. It has the potential.
We might not get up and even stand anymore soon. But,
no, that's true.
Of which my legs are a little tired. I got to get up and stand. Pat, it was awesome seeing you. Love you so much. I might even hit you up later in the week so we can record another episode, because I miss episodes. We got to get back in.
I love it. I'm available, dude.
I will hit you up. Have a good week at work. Give a kiss to Brownie for me. Kiss Stevie for me. And I will see you soon.
Love you, brother.
Peace. Love you, brother.